One of my favorite mutant titles is The New Mutants, and there are a lot of reasons why I feel a particular draw to this team, but one of the more fascinating aspects of them is that Chris Claremont does a lot to display their growth and, each of their own individual distinctive growths as well over the time the series progresses. This is what I'm classifying as an ideological evolution in the character, and I plan on making this a series that focuses on several of the New Mutants members and their own respective ideological evolution. Today, however, we'll be talking specifically about Rahne Sinclair, or Wolfsbane. So I think the easiest way to look at this is to examine where the character started their ideological journey, and then see where we ended up or the progress that has been made so far. Now, something that is immediately established with Rahne is that she comes from a devoutly religious environment. That in and of itself did a lot to form her cultural value system and her outlook on life and morality. Unfortunately, it's extremely evident that it was also a toxic religious environment, and she was often the target of abuse at the hands of her pastor. And because of this, she's a very socially repressed person who is riddled with insecurities. Add to all that she is a mutant and has a particularly, traditionally horror-esque mutation that acts as a conflicting parallel to her religion and meek demeanor. So there's a lot going on there. That mutation is, of course, by the way, her ability to transform into a wolf or wolf-like creature. Also, I will say, I realize there's a bit more of a complicated history later on with the Reverend and that being her father and the mind wipe stuff, but I'm going to be specifically examining all of this just based off what I've read of Claremont's original New Mutants run. I also feel the need to state that I hope nobody comes out of this thinking my thesis is that religion is bad and Rahne needs to drop her religion to have any type of growth, because that's not the case at all. And I am, for the record, not a religious person myself, but Rahne does grow and she doesn't drop her religion. She just learns to utilize it in a way where it doesn't go hand in hand with repression. And I think that's something we can all learn to do with anything in our life, not necessarily even religious. And that's why I think it's important. Just life outlooks, philosophies, the whole works. Find what in that is holding us back and then pivot it to boost us forward, right? I think we can all get on board with that no matter where we stand in the grand scheme of ideologies and things like that. And with that, let us begin with our introduction to Rahne Sinclair in Marvel graphic novel number 4. When we first meet her, it is at a breaking point. She is being brutally hunted down by her rage-fueled, bigoted congregation who are proclaiming because of her mutant ability, she has the demons in her, and their intent is pretty clear what they plan to do here, and they've already actually shot her. Now, it's only a flesh wound, but luckily she crosses paths with Moira, who ends up saving her. Side note, but it'd be interesting, since the Moira retcon, if Moira knew that Rahne would be in this danger from one of her past lives and knew where to be, and maybe there was some greater utilitarian reason Moira chose to save her or had to save her. Just a free idea for you there, Jonathan Hickman. But I digress. Moira stands up against this mob, saves Rahne, and then sends off Rahne to some place where she'd be safe, and that's with Charles Xavier, of course. This brings Rahne out of her tight-knit Scottish community and introduces her to the United States and all the mutant activity, rights action, and science that goes on in the Xavier Institute, which is probably a bit of a culture shock, and it is really like a melting pot of cultures there at the Xavier Institute. There are people from all walks of life, people with all types of different abilities, and people with all different types of ideologies, so Rahne is suddenly going to be exposed to a lot of them in a short amount of time. It's clear from the start that Rahne herself has been conditioned to believe her own inherent mutant abilities are wrong and that they come from some greater source of evil, and that it's not something to be proud of. There's this religious guilt associated with them, which is a definite problem considering how much Rahne does instinctually enjoy her powers. That internal battle is terrible for her mental disposition at her early stages with the New Mutants. And I will say, though, it's truly fantastic for Rahne that she was pulled out of Scotland and brought to Charles Xavier. Just with that, we immediately at least start to see a fragment of a shift in her ideology. She starts to at times recognize how cruel her Reverend was to her, but she's not at that great point yet, so she tends to backtrack and be like, oh, well, he would say something cruel to me right now if he saw me, but he is right, I am the devil. So recognizes the cruelty, but then, and sorry for the accent, guys, but yeah, she recognizes the cruelty, and then just tends to backtrack and fall back on the fact that her powers are evil or something like that. We also see her as this sort of metaphor for becoming comfortable with yourself in not only mind, but also physical body. There's a specific moment when she's given, like, the X-Men cadet type uniform all the New Mutants have at first, which is itself very conservative. There's no skin showing whatsoever, but even then, she still is thinking about how the Reverend wouldn't approve of it. And looking back to do this analysis and just focusing on Rahne, it's actually kind of incredibly sad how held back she was by her environment. I mean, she hates her looks, she kind of lacks basic romantic / social cue skills, and she can at times, as a product of her conditioning, be meekly judgmental of others and their ways. Which we do see a lot of later actually when magic is introduced, and I guess that is probably was a fun juxtaposition for Claremont to be writing. The sort of devoutly religious ideology, Rahne Sinclair working through that, and then all of a sudden, boom, we get magic introduced to the team, who is someone who comes from limbo, and who's someone who uses like darker magic, and who's someone whose powers manifest themselves in a very evil-looking way, if I am being honest. She has these thoughts with certain characters like Magic, and then also Nightcrawler, who very much looks like a demon, let's be honest. I think this is, in a way, also a lot of projection on Rahne's part, and it's of her own self-hate onto others, and it really is especially interesting with Nightcrawler because, well, Magic is nice to Rahne, but it's kind of in a tough love way. Nightcrawler is just like the sweetest dude despite his outward appearance, but all of that is part of Rahne growing and having to do it in an uncomfortable way sometimes, and she faces things she might not have been wanting to face before or was able to even face alone before. And you remember Rahne being very modest about her no skin showing uniform? Well, she's certainly gotten more comfortable with at least her team by this issue, as she dances and shows off even in her leotard. Friends and good friends can do a lot for a person, I think is what that says. Even when they have no sage wisdom to offer, the New Mutants are always there for Rahne, and they're always listening to her, and they are always assuring her that there's nothing wrong with her or her powers. And she really does end up feeling a lot more comfortable with them. She develops some romantic feelings and learns how to navigate those, which eventually leads to her first real romance. She becomes very open and quite talkative, and she shares her thoughts about religion and how the point of view it's taken in her life, and also, we peel back the layers a bit and reveal some of her past, and we learn that her mother is dead, and that the Reverend blamed Rahne for it. And in all of these instances, the New Mutants never judge her religion or tell her she's wrong or that the religion is wrong. They help her reframe or recontextualize it so that she can use its guiding principles in a more productive and positive light with none of the self-hatred involved. And by the end of this run, it's very clear that the timid little girl who hated herself and hated her body and thought she was doomed to burn in eternal damnation because of her powers is on a clear path to grow up to be a well-rounded, true-to-self, brave hero who will dedicate her life to doing the right thing and helping people in any way she can. And like I said at the start, she's still religious and is in touch with her religion. Her bad experience was not representative of her religious morality or point of view. That was an outlier case of a rotten soul doing everything he could to harm a young girl. The religion was not to be blamed for the ignorance that swore by it. Blame the congregation, blame the reverend, don't blame the religion. The morality that actually stemmed from her true religion is something deeply intertwined with Rahne's heart, and under the right circumstances can and will be used for good. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I plan on making more of these about the New Mutants and their ideological evolutions, so please let me know if you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, all that, and have a great rest of your day.